Hey folks, it's Sam, and I'm talking today about Sun and Mars, and they've recently shifted. Sun in Aries, Mars in Gemini. What does that mean when you have Sun in Aries, Mars in Gemini? And I'm going to talk about this for all 12 of the ascending signs. I'm going to talk about Aries through Pisces and what you could expect with Sun in Aries, Mars in Gemini. So check that out. Okay, folks, so you see we have the chart up here. This is actually a current chart of April 15th, 2021. And we see the Sun is in Aries. It's in its exalted placement. And Mars is in Gemini. You see they've just recently shifted. And if you go back even to a recent update that I just did, the new moon in Pisces, which was a few days ago, we had all these planets. Mars was in Taurus. The Sun was in Pisces. And I said we're going to have a big shift into these fire and air signs, a big shift into the masculine kind of energy. And we're seeing that now, right? So that's really big. And I'm going to talk about that in a second, not just for you, but for all 12 signs. So if you're a Scorpio, I'm going to talk about how having Sun in the 6th, Mars in the 8th, etc. I'm going to go through each of the 12 signs and talk about that. But I also wanted to let people know that if you didn't realize, I did a update, or I did a web class last year when for this nodes in Taurus and Scorpio. See, right now we have Rahu in Taurus and Ketu in Scorpio. And that's going to be going through until March of next year. So we're in a big shift right now. And if you haven't got that web class yet, you could click on the link I just put in the chat, in the live chat. I'll put it in the update also underneath the video. And it's free. You can go there and just click reserve your seat, watch instant replay, and either watch an instant replay or select a time to watch. You have to just register for it. But it's where I talk about the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio, again, for each of the 12 signs, including yours, but to just understand what this big shift means. We've been going through this shift since the end of 2020. This happened, for example, right before the election that we had in the U.S. A lot of things since then have been with this Rahu in Taurus, Ketu in Scorpio. And so I go over that placement historically, and the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio through the nakshatras, and then the upcoming eclipses, which is one of the reasons I'm also talking about it, because one thing is that we're getting very close to this eclipse, at least within a month and a half of this eclipse that's coming up in Taurus, and then remedies and practices. So this is a very popular web class, and it's free. Again, the link is just nodesintaurusand-scorpio.com. Nodesintaurusand-scorpio.com is the web address, and it takes you there. So this is also something that I would definitely recommend you avail yourself of. It's free. You just got to register for it. So again, as you can see, and just to double up here, when the Sun gets close to this next node, we're really starting to now foreshadow the next eclipse. And we're starting to get into this cycle of the next eclipse, which is going to be, again, in early June. You might say, well, June, that's a couple months away. It's a month and a half, about 7 weeks or so. Year's going fast. It's already April 15th, right? So it's June 10th, about 2 months, but we're getting near it when we have that solar eclipse. So, what we're talking about here today, though, is this Sun in Aries, which is the sign where the Sun is exalted, and Mars in Gemini. Now, a couple things. First of all, the Sun is exalted in Aries because the Sun is the part of us that is following following the soul's purpose. It's the supreme self, the Paramatman, the self that is not naturally in shadow, right? We're always talking about, especially now, the shadow, the shadow, the shadow. Everybody's whole, astrology is part of analyzing the shadow, right? Especially in the West, with everything is Jungian, everything. That's fine, not putting it down, but it's like a very Western way to look at the world. Like, well, we got to analyze our shadow. And even with people that are involved with Eastern philosophies now, we're still, but you can't just bypass the shadow and all that. Actually, you can, but I don't want to get into all that right now. But there is a way of looking at the world also, which is not about all of that. And in fact, this nature of the sun is not the sun that's naturally in the shadow. The shadow comes when you bring the sun and the moon, and you bring Purusha, which is just the pure light of oneness, and it starts interacting with our karma, the karma of Prakriti. Prakriti, or form, is our karma interfering with our true soul nature. And that true soul nature, the Atman, the supreme self, is not necessarily or at all involved with the shadow and all of that. It's beyond. So what it means to be exalted in Aries is that, Aries is the sign where we just instinctively trust our actions, and we just take and we just act. Act now, think later, worry about why later, just act. Act instinctively. That's the nature of Aries, to act instinctively. So what it shows when the sun is exalted, or this exaltation place of the sun, is it shows that it's the area where we're supposed to just act instinctively. We're supposed to instinctively act on that sun quality. That sun quality of, this is my true nature beyond the shadow, beyond the karma of the world, beyond all of that. I need to just act instinctively on that sense of purpose that is bigger than all of this false self, all of this illusion of the world. Again, that's what the sun is in its purest form. You see, the problem is we're hardly ever established in the pure nature of the sun. Every time we talk about, well, the sun is the self, it's the identity, that automatically is mixed with all this shadow, psychology, insecurity, ego. That's not actually the sun. That's the sun filtered through the ego and the shadow and all that other stuff. But the pure nature of the sun is beyond that, transcendent of that. The one without the second, the pure self, where it's not ultimately my sun and your sun. There's just one sun. The same Atman in me is the Atman in you. And even that, the Atman in me. That's called Jiva Atman, which is actually related to the moon because it's how we experience our universal Atman. So again, it's complicated in that regard. Once you start doing deep meditative practices and then start studying things like Vedanta and all that, then you start to understand it more. But you're only going to even understand this as well as you've practiced. If you haven't really touched those levels of consciousness, it's much more confusing to even understand what all that language is about. But the bottom line is that the reason the sun is exalted in Aries is because we're supposed to act instinctively on that pure soul wisdom. By the way, the sun debilitated in Libra means we can never get that from somebody else, which Libra is where we seek consensus. We're not supposed to seek consensus on the sun area of life. No, the sun is that tyranny of self, the tyranny of the soul to say, this is my true nature. Everything else is an abomination. Everything else is not it. There's only that. And again, so acting instinctively on that soul, on that sun nature, is exalting of the sun. Now, you also see it's debilitating on Saturn. So, for example, if someone has Saturn there in the natal chart, they'll often act instinctively on trying to control things. Again, the lower qualities of Saturn, they'll act instinctively on that. They'll instinctively follow that fear. and act on it. Again, that's not what we're supposed to be doing. With the fear, that's exalted in Libra, where we're supposed to question, not act, seek consensus, and all that. That helps the Saturn part. It debilitates the Sun, just like the reason the Sun is exalted in Aries is we instinctively act on our soul's nature beyond all this. But if we instinctively act, for example, on Saturn stuff, then we're going to bring a lot of pain and difficulty to ourselves. So the Sun being exalted, this is why the Sun is exalted. And for the next several weeks, this Sun in Aries, you see right now on April 15th, it's only 1 degree. So we got 29 days of this, 28 and a half more days of this exalted Sun. Hang on a second. Sorry, I just played tennis for about 2 hours. Ran in here. And by the way, that's a good thing to be doing right now with exalted Sun. Get out there, vigorous exercise, right? So, this is why, right? Now, when we look at Mars is the ruler of Aries. We see Mars has also just moved. He was here, as you see, he was here, joined Rahu. Mars and Rahu were just joined a few days ago. And now we have it here where he's moved on. You know, the moon has moved from here to there, Sun has moved here, and Mars has moved from here to Gemini. So Mars in Gemini, little trickier, not nearly as beneficial, because Mars is that planet of action. You know, when we talk about Aries gives us the ability to act instinctively, well, that's a quality of Mars, because the signs are expressions of the planets. They're a nature of the planet. Mars, his masculine nature comes through Aries, and his feminine quality comes through Scorpio. So Mars externally focused is Aries, again, where we act instinctively. Mars internally reflected, we experience through Scorpio, which again is already a more complicated quality of Mars as well, because Mars wants to act, but Scorpio is emotional, watery, and so it's more emotional action, activity, and courage and things like that. So Scorpio is more complicated when it comes to Mars energy. In that regard, gives more emotional courage, internal courage, but also a little more emotional conflict as well internally, because Mars wants to strengthen something and the water wants to unify. So there's a sort of conflict going on there with unifying and fighting going on kind of simultaneously. Whereas, again, with Aries, Mars is very clear. It's like act without any emotional reflection. Again, act first, think later. So Mars is very functional, expressing through Aries, more complicated through Scorpio. But we see that it's in the sign of Gemini, right? Gemini is a masculine sign. It's external, but it's ideas. It's air. And air is about ideas. It's external, but it's about communication. Again, expressing ourselves mainly through language and ideas with its nature in Gemini, because Gemini is ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication. So you can see right there how Mars in Gemini often can set up conflict, argument, and, aggression. Again, with Mars, the benefit and the detriment with Mars is this idea of wanting to win, and win at all costs. I want to win. There's a competitor, there's a fight, there's a battle, and I want to win the battle. Now, again, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because we need to win the battle. We need to win the battle over ignorance. We need to win the battle over our own weakness. And again, we need to have the courage to fight the battle. So we just talked about a big part of how that works out really well with the Sun. Because when we act instinctively to win that battle, that's the battle we're supposed to win. We're supposed to fight the battle to return to that one without a second. And we have the courage for that battle. That's a tough battle. That's a big one. Because now we got to look at all of our own faulty actions, mistakes, lack of discipline. And so Mars gives the courage to show up and fight that battle, but it's a battle of action, taking action, doing the right things, being disciplined. That's an external quality related to fire. Fire is about action, the clarity of action. Again, Gemini is also masculine, but it's ideas externalized. And so Mars and this desire to fight and to win in the sign of ideas, well, you can put those two things together pretty easily, right? And so this, you could see how we could get way too bogged down in wanting to win, have our ideas win, have our battles, and fight over ideas and battles. We can see some of these things coming up right now socially. With it in the U.S., we have some very contentious things going on with trials, especially now socially. Some big social problems coming up with, we're getting policemen shooting people again, and we're on the verge of some major social rioting, perhaps. We're already seeing some of it. But this fired up over ideas and ready to fight over them, again, big time shift now. And Mars is going to be in, Mars will be in Gemini for several weeks. Mars is in Gemini until early June, to like June 3rd. So again, this is a time where you want to be careful of your of hyper aggression around your ideas and fighting and battles, and try to keep your eyes on the prize, so to speak. With the sun in Aries, sun being exalted, there's a lot of benefit that comes when the sun is exalted, mainly through looking at our higher goals and purpose. So anyone who are healers and teachers and yogis, or whatever it is that is your vision and your purpose in life, the next several weeks with the sun going through Aries, be very supportive of that. And Mars going through Gemini, though, you want to be careful about not getting your time and energy bogged down in arguments with people. And also notice where people who are argumentative, or people who want to fight, or who, they might be coming after you. And try not to dissipate your energy in fighting with them. And fight the good fight until early June. We also have right now, again, Mercury's about to move. Mercury will be in Aries in a couple days, within 2 days, and Jupiter is also aspecting Mars right now. So we're seeing, especially a lot of the social explosiveness or frustrations spilling over right now, or at least that issue in the world right now, with this Jupiter aspecting Mars as well. Hang on a second, please. Sorry, I'm a little thirsty. All right, so I said I would talk about this for each of the 12 signs as well. I want to thank Nancy for a little super sticker, $10. Thank you. You don't have to do that, but I appreciate that. Marla says, hi, Sam. Hello. Kim, hi, everyone. Hi. Maui Horoscope. Aloha. Thank you, Sam. Glad to see you're doing well. Yes, I'm doing well. Moksha Trine. Hi, Sam. See, I'm reading some names here. This Mars in Gemini, it's right on my ascendant, so it gets me a little fired up in a good way also. I don't mind a little Mars. I have my ascendant and Mercury and Venus right there. And Michelle Robinson, Aries, Sun, Gemini rising. Okay. Sam, you're the best. Thanks for being in our lives. Whatever you need us service, I'm available. Okay, great. Thank you. Great. Well, yeah. So I appreciate people, people showing up here. This 12 signs. It's very important to, I try to sort of carve out these cycles because these are really the things that I pay attention to. I look at my dashas and whatnot as well to know kind of what's going on. But day to day, overall in my life, I'm really looking at these shifts. Like I'll be paying attention for the next several weeks until early June. That's like, okay, Mars is in your first house. Because for me, I have Gemini rising. So now Mars is in my first house. So looking for people that are, I might say looking for a fight, which I got to be careful because I could definitely get into some fights. And by the way, also online fights, online battles and stuff. Maybe have some people coming for me. Come at me. Bring it on. I'll be spoiling for a scrap. I don't really like it though, but you never know. But, again, the exalted sun, it's like, okay, for me, that's my 11th house. And so time to really, bring things into the public and hold larger space. So that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of the 12 signs so people can get a feeling for how this will work. So again, for Aries, again, you have this exalted sun in your first house and your ruling planet Mars in the third house. So this is really obviously a time for you, Aries, to step up and, really make a difference, really follow that vision. But again, you need to be careful, Aries, of getting into fights and battles with people, especially because Mars is your ruling planet. You're looking for a scrap a lot of the time. And it's also, again, your third house of communication. And Mars also rules your sixth house of arguments and fights and struggles. It's a difficult area for you. I'm sorry, Mars also rules your eighth house. I'm sorry. But so you're always looking to kind of break things up and sort of, destroy something a little bit. So you have to be careful, Aries, not to get into pointless arguments for sure. Taurus, this is much different. This is the sun is going through your 12th house. It's your fourth lord in the 12th, which is illuminating a real inner strength, an inner light for you, Taurus, a hidden strength, a hidden light. And for you, Taurus, you just had Mars, Rahu in your first house. So you might have been pretty fired up more than usual lately, Taurus people. So you got Mars left your first house. Rahu is still there, but Mars is no longer there. So you might be a time for you, Taurus, to reflect a little bit and really tap into some hidden, power and clarity, maybe even some, forgiveness or compromise or something over maybe some struggles that you might have had or some battles, because you just went through a, pretty intense one with the Mars Rahu in your first, maybe more argumentative and stressed than you normally are, Taurus, because you're usually pretty peaceful, but that Mars Rahu going through your first could have made you pretty fired up. Sun going through your 12th house, fourth lord in the 12th, exalted, maybe brings some deep clarity. But again, Mars has now moved into the second house in Gemini, where you might still be kind of a little argumentative. So, Taurus, this is a tricky time for you. You've had Rahu in the first and now Mars going through it. You're going to have an eclipse. So you're going through a lot right now, Taurus. And so just notice this shifting and make sure that you're willing to be responsible for your own words and your own part in situations. Gemini, well, as a Gemini, you're perfect, you're great, you're wonderful. No, so, for Mars going into your first house, this is definitely often not a very welcome visitor, because Mars for Gemini makes you a little stressed out. It can definitely be a planet of arguing. It's your 6th and 11th house ruler. And again, you really want things to be smooth. You are wired to look for consensus, and Mars wants to be saying black or white, right or wrong, slash and burn, and frustrated. So Gemini, watch your frustrations, watch your opinions, and fighting over ideas. you can really be like that anyway. This exalted sun in your 11th house, something for you to concentrate more on your contribution. And I'm aligning people with more to follow that sun, because that sun is exalted. And that's a place where there's going to be much more of a natural place to land our kind of fire. Because we have the Mars fire in Gemini, which is kind of fired up about our ideas. But we have that sun fire in Aries, which is really ready to be recommitted. And again, for you, Gemini, it's in your 11th house of higher contribution to your culture, society, humanity, being of service. Focus your energy more there, not so much on winning arguments with people. And with Cancer, we have your, the sun is exalted now in your 10th house. That's really nice transit for you, Cancer, bringing that power of the sun into your 10th house. A good time for you to step up and really take responsibility. You can sometimes be a little sheepish around that sometimes, but Cancer is actually great for stepping up and being responsible if there's a good reason to do it, to serve, to teach. So notice how much you're in alignment with these things, Cancer. And if you're not, then have the courage to really, make some changes, and notice that your apathy or the fact that you're not showing up as big in the world is because you're not aligned with your purpose and with your heart, with your heart's desire. That Mars going through your 12th house, again, can really help. Mars is that planet sort of your heart's desire. It's your 5th house ruler. And going through your 12th house, maybe it's a time for you to let go of some, small-minded thinking where you're limiting yourself. And investigate those hidden inspirations. Mars is about to move into your 1st house, Cancer. He's coming for you next, and he's going to be invigorating you. So you want to make sure to be in alignment with your passion. Otherwise, you're going to be feeling the frustration of not being in alignment when Mars goes into your 1st house in June. So this is with Leo. We have your ruling planet, the sun, exalted in the 9th house. Again, this is why this really shows, Leo, your naturally inspirational qualities, your inspired nature, and your desire to want to act on what inspires you. So your ruling planet, the sun, is exalted there in your 9th house. So a great time for you to be a teacher, a leader, to step up and really land and embody and feel empowered and embodied in yourself as an inspiring figure and leader and teacher. You also have Jupiter going through your 7th house. So a lot of good things there for the Leos, a newfound strength and inspiration. And Mars, is going through your 11th house. This could really also play nicely into showing up for your community. Mars is a powerful planet for you, your 4th and 9th house ruler going through your 11th house. That can show also a lot of healthy ambition, aligned with your purpose and with your teachings, especially. So again, a positive time for you, Leo, for the next several weeks. Not as difficult as it is for other signs. Virgo, a little tricky here because the sun, it's your 12th house ruler exalted in the 8th house. Now that's a natural Viparit Raja Yoga, right? So it does represent this courage to face some of your vulnerabilities and insecurities, especially around your feeling anonymous and your kind of humble, in fact, Virgo, sometimes you have a difficult time showing up big because the sun, the 12th house ruler, rules your 12th house, or, is that hidden strength, right? The sun, that bright self, rules your 12th house of being hidden and kind of confused. So Virgo, you often have a hard time knowing how to step up and claim your power. So now with the exalted placement, it shows that you can work through some of that self editing, some of that, voice running in your head that says, oh, you're not smart. Oh, you're not good enough. Oh, but other people are smarter. Other people are more capable. I can't do it. And that critic that you have in your head. And Mars in the 10th house, Virgo, is also bringing some fire in your public life. So it's a good time for you, Virgo, to actually maybe bring some fire into your public life. Again, one thing you need to be careful of is not turning into the keyboard warrior, anonymous expert critic that goes and fights with everybody to feel like you're some kind of powerful person. This is one of the negative traits, one of the negative kind of avatars of Virgo is the sort of anonymous keyboard warrior who, instead of having real power and stepping up and being seen, they're the critic back there shooting holes in everybody and trying to prove all the people wrong who they perceive as being more powerful than them. So instead, claim your own power, Virgo. Libra, this is quite an interesting transit. Again, Sun is exalted in your 7th house of other people. It often shows, Libra, where you tend to center other people in your life at the expense of your own identity, compromising too much and whatnot. So now's a time for you to, look at that, but also feel more empowered around your purpose, because the Sun rules your 11th house. And when you have a higher purpose, Libra, you'll tend to not give away more of your own power to one individual or individuals. So stepping up strong in that regard. And Mars going through your 9th house, or Mars in the 9th house, definitely shows where willing to fight for your teachings, your principles, and clarify those things. It's not a bad transit. It's a Raja Yoga by transit. 7th Lord in the 9th really shows where you can want to show up, especially around high teachings and good teachings, to support them for other people, and represent a good ethic around teachings. But again, of course, it's Mars, so be careful, getting into battles over those ideas. Scorpio, this is a mixed transit for sure, but obviously it can be quite positive. The Sun is exalted in that 6th house, which shows a lot of service. You have a natural devotional quality, unlike most others in the zodiac. Very devotional, but you need to work through that sort of toxic reflex of emotions, because you can be your instinct can be the dark, toxic struggle of life, and that needs to be elevated. And so the Sun goes very far in doing that, and this exalted Sun helps to, again, center you on being more of service, because it's exalted in the 6th house, and to something higher, and have the courage to be humbled as well, and not be fired up over grievance. And Mars going through your 8th house, again, it's about transformation and ideas, but again, you need to be careful not getting into damaging, destructive arguments, and having that really destroy your mind, because your ruling planet Mars going through the 8th house, again, you could really destroy some connections. But instead, using, again, the nature of Gemini is transformative for Scorpio in this sense, because it's where more lightheartedness, more humor, more investigation, instead of being like, oh, this happened. And again, the problem with Mars is we get too fired up about something. With Scorpio, it's emotionally. But in Gemini, the opportunity is to not believe all of that drama and investigate and say, wait a minute, maybe this is me just doing the thing I do all the time. And did that person really mean that? Or was that really what's going on? And be more flexible. Instead of going, aha, now I'm going to use every piece of data I can to fight you and prove how you hurt me, or whatever it might be. So Scorpio, you need to be careful here, but there's a lot of potential for transformation, letting go of toxic things you're maybe holding on to. Sagittarius, this is really one of the most beneficial for you, Sagittarius. The sun is here. It's your ninth lord, exalted in the fifth house. Very nice. Really can show how your teachings and your inspirations are right at the heart of your creative life, right? And functioning as a kind of bulwark against negativity and to support your heart's desire and your creative output, right? So your spiritual teachings, your higher wisdom, again, it's not just about you feeling good about them, but sharing them, giving birth to them. Fifth house, right? And Mars is, probably your best friend besides the sun. He rules your fifth house, exalted in the seventh house. That could even be like some relationship or other kinds of again, inspiring teachings and inspirational practices with partners and whatnot. Again, but it's the fifth lord in the seventh house. So the fifth house ruler is one of the most fulfilling and gratifying planets that we have. So we really love that fifth house stuff, right? So you love all that challenge. So it's a good time to be getting along with others in that regard. For Capricorn, for Capricorn, this is your eighth lord in the fourth house with the exalted sun. And that's bringing a lot of those insecurities that you naturally feel. Because Capricorn, you're very aware of how vulnerable you are with the sun ruling the eighth house, bringing that and exalting that in your fourth house. So it shows, Capricorn, that you have a deep love and willingness to do the deep inner work. You have a lot of emotional courage, inner emotional courage, with the sun, the eighth lord, exalted in the fourth. So for you, Capricorn, that's a big thing right now. Go inward and really feel that light within and have that be like your home. Your real home, your emotional home, Capricorn, is that inextinguishable light. So don't get so hypnotized by all your fears about the world, right? And Mars is also, Mars gives that crocodile a lot of inner courage, because Mars is the ruler of that fourth house and also the 11th house ruler, which shows how you are willing to, fight for what you think is right in the world. You have a lot of, ambition. But again, once you get clear about what's in your heart, then your ambition isn't so ruthless. But Mars shows how you can be kind of ruthless with your ambitions, ruling the fourth and 11th house. If your fourth house, if you're full of emotional confusion and fear, then you're very ruthless in the world. But as you learn more about the nature of life, then the things you fight for become very spiritual. So having Mars going through your sixth house shows a lot of humbling, a lot of opportunity to really question your battles and struggles, right? So that could be very beneficial. But again, always have to be careful getting in the fights and the arguments and then just going nowhere as a result. So Aquarius, and by the way, Capricorn, you have your ruling planet Saturn now in that first house. So there's a lot of identity and truthfulness right now in your life in general. So a lot of lessons that might seem hard, that they've been hard won lately. But this placement, especially of the exalted sun, can really be helpful right now in illuminating these qualities. Aquarius, this is the sun is the seventh house ruler. The seventh house ruler exalted in your third house. So this shows where, you tend to want to latch on to powerful other people at times, Aquarius. This shows the sun is exalted in the third house, which is more about your own skills, your own interests, your own individuality, and like a healthy ego, which is what you need to really develop, Aquarius. You need to develop a healthy ego. Often it's something that you have to work towards. By the way, just to show, this book, my first book that I wrote, I talk about a lot of I talk about these exalted placements and what they mean in an archetypal sense in each of the 12 signs. Whether the planets are there or not, in an archetypal way, these exaltation points are very important. Book happened to be sitting there, so I thought I'd pull it up. But for you, Aquarius, Mars going through the 5th house is also really powerful, because Mars is your 10th house ruler going through the 5th house. This means your work and duties and responsibilities can be undergoing a very interesting, creative, hybridizing quality right now. You know, that's the way Gemini is. It's a very synthetic, hybrid way of bringing things together that don't always seem like they go together. And so Mars there, again, if we're willing to not be, you know, an idiot and win arguments, Mars brings a lot of enthusiasm to that. And so for you, Aquarius, it can be very beneficial for your career, especially because, again, Mars is your 10th house ruler, and he's going through that 5th house of being you know, interested and creative. And so bringing a lot of enthusiasm and passion into your career could be very good right now, Aquarius. And finally, Pisces, this is, you know, the sun is exalted in your 2nd house. It's the 6th house ruler. And he's exalted there in your 2nd house, which shows the need to bring that natural service and humbled quality. You're a very, you know, humbled individual. You generally tend to notice where all this energy is so, it can feel so big that you kind of get lost in the ocean of everything that's going on. But the sun rules you from that 6th house of being nailed into the specifics of life and not just kind of checking out. So exalted in the 2nd house shows that firm light and commitment needs to be in your, really at the center of your values. Values, very important. So rather than feeling the confusion of how to, you know, be of service or whatever in any specific way, you need to just make sure that naturally humble quality is at the center of your value system and empowering you in that way. So it's a really good time for you, Pisces, to get clear about what do you want to be of service to, and how does that take you to that place of unwavering clarity. And then Mars is he's like your best friend, your 2nd and 9th house ruler going through the 4th, shows very good for bringing your teachings, your inspirations from the 9th house into your heart, which is your 4th house. So not just having your teachings sort of clunking around up there somehow. Oh yeah, I believe this, but I believe that, but there's that, but there's that. Oh, there's everything. Oh, I'm just swimming in the sea of who knows what. No, that's easy for you, Pisces. What's harder for you is to stay connected, stay committed, stay focused. And Mars is the thing that can keep the fish moving forward. So bringing that clarity and that discipline and commitment into your heart, into your 4th house, is really big. So this is for each of the 12 signs. Again, of course, now we have the typical question. I've got to make sure to not let my Mars in Gemini, but is this for the rising sign or yes, rising sign, rising sign, rising sign, rising sign, rising sign. Everything I always do is rising sign. Make a little song. Always rising sign. Yes, someone said, yes, applicable to moon due to importance. No, it's not. Okay? So you're asking me, it's rising sign. I'm describing rising sign because our karmas unfold from our rising sign. And of course, there's always the especially Vedic astrology principle of check that too, check that too, check that too. And the moon is one of the big ones. Check it from the moon too because of its importance or because of this. And the moon too, and the moon too. No, rising sign, not and the moon too. Okay? So if you want to do astrology precisely, you do precise stuff. So again, the moon is something different, and all of this unfolds. Our life is unfolding from the ascendant. Okay, so that was what I wanted to talk about here. And again, I just wanted to again put this in here for those who want to understand, because we do have this big eclipse coming up. As you see, the sun is getting closer to Rahu, and this is one of the big eclipses that that I'll be talking about here very soon. Is what winds up happening is, and again, I haven't formally taught on this, and instinctively I know by now that what happens is the eclipses start to have an effect relative to which node the sun is closer to. So we always hear this thing. This is another one of the things that astrologers say. I'm going to do video things astrologers say that are mostly not true. One of them is, and the moon too, and the moon too, and the sun, and this, and that, and that, and this. There's always and 50 more things in case the first thing I said, in case the precise methods that I never use don't work. Then check that too, and you can always say, oh yeah, that's why. This is why astrologers say that stuff, by the way, a little inside baseball. Inside baseball, the reason astrologers say, oh yeah, and check that too, is because they don't have precise methods that actually work. So at any given time, they could always find, oh yeah, it was that. Here's why some people don't like me. Anyway. No, but what I've noticed here is that, again, we always hear that the eclipse, its effects go on for 6 months until the next eclipse. I don't think that's really what's going on. We start to see we see a foreshadowing of an upcoming eclipse. Then it's the most intense when we have the eclipse. Then it hangs on relative to how close the sun is still to those nodes. Then then that last eclipse starts to fade as the sun starts getting closer to the next node and the next eclipse. This is what I'm pretty sure is going on. And I have been watching this off and on for years. It's a lot to bring out literal case studies, and it's a subtle thing to research. A lot of it is also just noticing with myself and noticing with others. And I'll show you in a second what I mean when I bring up the chart. But again, you can go here. The website is nodesintaurusandScorpio.com, and it brings up this page. So again, it's free to register, and I talk about this. We're going to be having the nodes in this axis again until May of next year. And it came in right at the end, the middle end of September of this last year, a little more than a month before like the previous U.S. election. One of the reasons why I said Biden would win the last election is because of this shift, showed a big shift in our priorities toward things to be more stable, et cetera. So, but it's going until March of next year. So we still got a year of the nodes in this axis. So you should know what this is going on. And by the way, here we go. Nodes in Taurus and Scorpio for you and all 12 signs. And what does it mean when I say you? What is it again? It's ascendant. Not and moon also. No. So always with the ascendant. And so nodes in Taurus and Scorpio historically, nodes in Taurus and Scorpio nakshatra. So I go through as the nodes are moving. They move, Rahu moved from Mrigashira. Now he's in Rohini. He's going to go in Kritika. Again, Ketu started in Jeshta. He's still in Jeshta, I think. And then he winds up going into Anurata and then Vishaka. Excuse me. So this is, and then also remedies. And also, historically, because there was some very interesting historical things that are also playing out now. One of the things that's playing out that I talked about was the last time, what happened is the last time Rahu and Ketu were here is when we established, for example, the Department of Homeland Security. And I talked about how previously we also had another establishment of a major government agency, and that we have to be careful of kind of draconian measures being put into place and controlling structures, like things such as vaccine vouchers or, vaccinate, getting controlled again, that this is a distinct possibility. And people's response to those things, right? Because it was right after 9/11, the last time Rahu was here. Right after 9/11. And when this happened, when Rahu went through Taurus, is when we had Department of Homeland Security, this big bureaucracy, all this stuff. So that we could see another big bureaucracy. Maybe we haven't had the big bureaucracy, but now all of these COVID regulations and money and all this stuff that's going on, and at least that feeling, in order to feel stable and feel solid, these things happen. So on that web class, I have a lot of case studies. I go through a lot of things that happened the last couple times that Rahu went through Taurus and Ketu went through Scorpio, right? So the thing I was saying earlier about the influence of the eclipses, though, means that the last eclipse happened when the sun was over here. Sun was over here, and we feel the effects of the eclipse most powerfully as the sun is like right near the eclipse, and then like right after it, we really feel it. We also tend to feel it here. It starts to get less impactful here. But then we start to feel the next eclipse coming when the sun starts getting closer to this part of the node and further away from that part of the node. That's what I'm saying. For you astrologers, astrology students out there, start noticing this, and you'll see that it's right. I have some students that love to research some things now. Notice this. So what I'm saying is that right now, we're being much more influenced by this upcoming eclipse than we were the one that happened 6 months ago, 5 months ago. So again, this idea, and by the way, I'm just joking about things astrologers say. I've said them too. We all say it. I'm not disparaging my colleagues. I'm just having fun. But these are things astrologers say by Sam. I should do it. But this is one of the things, and I've said it too. So full disclosure. But it's not really like that, I don't think. I think that we see the effect of the eclipse. That's where the sun is closest to whichever node is there. So it would be like 3 signs ahead, like this is the kind of window. 2 signs ahead, 2 signs behind, or something like that. Then as the sun starts getting 2 signs, 2.5 to 3 signs closer to the next node, it starts to foreshadow the upcoming eclipse. And that's where we are right now. That's why I started talking about it here, and to let people know about this free web class, because we're starting to feel that we're getting more into that eclipse. By the way, we can look at the things that happened around the last eclipse. This had a lot to do with things like the insurrection and all this other stuff that happened. Happened right around here. It was right around, the sun was very close to this eclipse, right? If it wasn't the insurrection, it was all that paranoia about what was going to happen with the election. Was Trump going to steal it? Were they going to actually make this case of widespread voter fraud with a clown show of lawyers doing all that stuff? This was when the sun was around here going through all that back then. So that was the eclipse that Ketu and Scorpio, the sun was near that whole eclipse, right? And it held on for a few months. We were still kind of in that way. Again, the last couple months, we're further away from that. We're getting closer to this next eclipse, which, as I mentioned even in the eclipse webinar, has to do with things like the power grabs that we need to be careful of, but also the benefit of COVID, vaccines, stabilizing things. We're going to get back to things being more stabilized, but the possibility of doing things to feel stable and safe, spinning out into something that's a little bit heavy-handed and draconian is also there. Not to mention social stability, wanting the fabric of society to be more stable. Again, we're seeing these trials now in socially, especially in the US. These are kind of things that are dominating the news a little bit right now. So again, we're foreshadowing this next eclipse right now, big time. So I would recommend, if you didn't get that web class, to get it. In addition to this update, this is an update on mainly talking about the planets and signs, especially we have an exalted sun. We have Mars just moved. It's a big shift from the last place we were, right? Big shift from this just a few days ago. Just a few days ago, the sun was barely here. Now, here we are a couple days later, and we're in this. So I wanted to leave that update. And let's see some people. Looks like people. Marla's taking my class this weekend. That's great. I do have a class coming up. Oh, here we go. Is this Vedic moon signs? Yes. Keep asking questions. Vedic moon signs? What are we talking about? Oh, man. Woohoo! Is this Vedic moon? Is this my moon sign? What are we again? In my sun sign? What? Come on. Somebody help him out. All right. So we have, I appreciate people showing up here for this. And, go ahead and share it with others if you think they'll like it. It's very important information about Sun, Mars, and each of the 12 signs. 12 signs. And you all have a good one.